Hello and welcome to the tutorial video for my Google Sheets budget template and personal finance tracker. My name is Avery and I'm the person behind the blog and Instagram account Little House Budget. This video is a little long, but you can watch it in small chunks if you like, and you can find the timestamps in the description box for easy reference later. You will also find a link to this template in the description box, so you can get yourself a copy of it if you don't already have it. In this video, I will walk you through each sheet, show you how to set it up quickly and easily, and share lots of helpful tips so you can truly make this template your own and start budgeting and organizing your personal finance with peace and confidence. To get started, you will need to make a copy of the template on Google Sheets. Make sure you have a free Google account. When you click the link to open the template, you may be prompted to make a copy as soon as you open it. If not, you will be taken to a view-only version of the template. To make a copy, click File and select Make a Copy. Then I suggest making an additional copy so you can keep one as your current budget tracker and one as a blank template. When you first open the budget tracker, you may notice some weird blank areas or red triangles like here on the far right. These will go away once you start inputting information. This is what it will look like once you start using the tracker. An important note, you will only type in blank white cells. If the cell is a different color than white, such as light gray, do not type in that cell and leave it alone. If you want to share this tracker with your spouse or someone else, click Share and enter in their email address and make sure they are listed as an editor if you want them to be able to edit or make changes to the budget as well. This is a really cool feature of Google Sheets because it allows both you and your spouse or whoever you want to include in your budget to have access to the budget and make changes wherever and whenever you'd like. And if you download the Google Sheets app, you can easily pull up your budget before checking out at a store or filling up your car's tank of gas. This template is for personal use only, so do not reproduce or distribute it, but you are more than welcome to share it with your spouse or other members of your immediate family. So the first sheet of this tracker is the Getting Started checklist, and I am going to run through this checklist with you in this video. However, you are totally free to go through it yourself. This video is just here as an extra source of support and guidance. The first step is to type in the current year. This is important to do because the year will be on a few other sheets such as the dashboard and the net worth tracker. If you type it in here, it will pop up on the other sheets as well. And once you've done that, you can check the first thing off the list. You are currently watching the tutorial video, so I'm going to check that off the list as well. And then if you haven't already done so, make an extra blank copy of this template so you can make a new copy year after year. You will be able to track an entire year in this template, but you will need to make a fresh copy each year. The template starts in January and goes through December. But if you are starting to use this tracker later in the year, that is totally fine. Just start in the current month and leave the previous months blank. Once you have made sure to make a second backup copy of the budget tracker, check it off the list. The next tab in this tracker is the Setup sheet. On this sheet, you will personalize your budget categories. You need to do this before you start budgeting. At the top, you can list up to 10 income categories. I did list some example budget categories on this sheet for you to help you get started, but you are totally free to change them. I recommend leaving this other income category at the bottom of the income list in case you receive any miscellaneous income throughout the year. After you list your income categories, you need to list your expense categories. There are 14 expense subcategories, which are these ones listed in light gray, and they're based on Dave Ramsey's recommended budget categories. These are able to be changed or personalized, but I would try to leave them the way they are. If you know that you aren't going to use one, you are free to change it. For instance, if you don't have kids, but you have dogs, you might want to change the kids one to pets. If you do not like the emojis or you want to change these little icons, you can do that as well. After you have finalized the subcategories, list your budget categories, your budget lines underneath the subcategories. If you are not sure what to list, you can look at the last 30 days of transactions in your bank account and just come up with a budget category for each transaction. And you may also come up with more budget categories as you go through the year and start tracking your budget more closely. You can add new budget categories at the bottom of the list, but you should not change any budget categories once you start using them in your budget, because these budget categories will show up on the other sheets. So you could mess up the budget if you change them. If later in the year you decide you want to add one, that is fine. You can come back and add it at the end of the list underneath the subcategory that it corresponds with. So let's say you want to track your coffee expenses, then just go on over to food and then type it in underneath at the end of the list for the food expenses. Once you have personalized your budget categories, you can check it off the list. Now let's move on to the annual budget. This may look overwhelming to you, but I don't want you to stress over it. This is not a budget sheet that you will use every single month. You will pretty much set it and forget it. You can look over it throughout the year if you would like to see how well you are staying within budget, but you will be making a more detailed budget every pay period on the monthly sheets. So what I want you to do is go through and fill in the income and expenses you expect to have each month throughout the year. Don't spend too much time on it. It doesn't have to be perfect. I already filled in most of the information on here with example budget information. At the top, you will see left to budget cells for each month, and you need to make sure to bring each month down to 0. Once you have budgeted for these essential expenses, you can use whatever is left over for fun, extra things, or to throw at your financial goals. For example, if you are trying to pay off debt, you could put this $1,400 left over in April towards debt. I find creating an annual budget to be an incredible tool because it gives you perspective over the whole year. Think about the financial goal you really want to accomplish. Let's say you want to pay off debt and put $500 a month towards debt so you can pay down $6,000 of debt in a year. As you go through and fill this out, you will see how you can accomplish that. You may have to cut down on things or cut out things like vacations or eating out to reach your goal. Completing this exercise should give you some clarity on how you need to manage your money in order to reach your financial goals. In addition, creating an annual budget will help you plan ahead for expenses. If you know that you are going on a road trip in June, you can increase your gas budget in June. I know that August is back to school time, so I like to increase our clothing and school funds so I can buy new clothes, shoes, and school supplies that month. As you go through the year, the actual columns on the right will automatically fill in with the numbers you enter on the transaction log so you can see the compiled data at the end of the year and use the information to budget better next year. So you will just fill in the budgeted white column. Do not type in the dark blue rows either. That is just a total of the subcategory. And again, don't stress too much about this sheet. Spend about 30 minutes filling it out at the beginning of the year or whenever you first start using this template, and then check in with it periodically throughout the year. Some of the charts in the dashboard sheet pull from the information listed here, so it's important to fill out the annual budget for that reason too. Once you have completed this, check it off the list. Now let's head on over to the sinking funds tracker. We did skip a few sheets, but we will go back and look over those later. I just want to focus on the steps you need to take first to set up this tracker. So on the sinking funds sheet, you have a list of your sinking funds on the left. These automatically fill in from the sinking funds categories that you listed on the setup sheet. I added emojis to these funds. If you want to add, change, or edit these sinking funds, don't type in this box here. Go back to the setup sheet. Certain cells throughout the spreadsheet have protections. That means if you try to edit them, an error message will pop up. This is to help you avoid messing up any formulas I have built into this spreadsheet. So just click cancel if you see one of those alerts pop up. If you want to know if a cell has a formula, you can look in the formula bar at the top. If it is blank, there is no formula. But if there is some sort of equation starting with an equal sign, that means there is a formula, and it is important not to change it. In the middle, you will find 20 boxes summarizing each sinking fund that you've set up. At the top, you will find your total current balance, which is the current balance of each sinking fund added up together. And then over here is the goal amount for you to save each month towards your sinking funds. And even though these boxes are white, you can see that there's a formula in those boxes, so do not touch them. They just will automatically calculate for you. And then to the far right is a transaction log. So going back to the sinking fund boxes, you will list a starting balance if you already have money saved, then list a goal amount and the number of months until you would like to reach your goal amount. If you don't have a goal date in mind, you can list an estimated amount of money you spend in a year on that sinking fund and then type 12 for the number of months in a year to divide that amount by. And after that, you'll get the amount you should save each month towards your sinking fund. So let's do the clothing fund together. I have no starting balance. My goal amount is $500 for the year, and I'm going to put for 12 months of the year. So approximately $41 or $42 a month I should be saving for my clothing fund. Now let's look at the transaction log. As you add money to your sinking funds, type it into the transaction log so you can see an accurate current balance. If you take money out of the sinking fund to spend, type the category of the sinking fund that you are removing it from and type the amount you removed with a negative sign. You have to decide if you will keep your sinking funds in cash envelopes or in a bank account. If you want to keep them in a bank account, this tracker allows you to accurately track the balance by inputting any interest you earn in your account. It also allows you to lump all of your sinking funds in one bank account and still keep track of the individual balances of your sinking funds. So here you can see I added interest. It's listed under the list of categories. And if you find that you're going to remove money from your sinking funds but not spend it on that sinking fund, you still need to list the category that you took it from. So if you decide to take $50 out of your sinking funds, decide where is that $50 coming from. If you don't pick one of these categories, then it won't change the current balance to be accurate. So that's it for the sinking funds tracker. We're going to move on to the net worth tracker now. On the net worth tracker, you need to list your assets and liabilities. I entered some example information in this sheet so you can see what the charts look like as you track your net worth. These two charts up here will show how your net worth hopefully grows each month. It shows the progression of your net worth. And then the pie charts down here show the distribution of your assets and your liabilities. Basically, what type of assets are your assets made up of? What type of liabilities are your liabilities made up of? Tracking your net worth is helpful because it is an accurate picture of your financial health. If you paid off all of your debt, what would you have left over? If you are in a lot of debt and don't have many assets, you may be starting with a negative net worth. Do not worry if your net worth is not what you expected or hoped for. Just keep tracking it monthly or quarterly if you prefer, and use it to make decisions that help you improve it. Do not touch the net worth summary. This summarizes the information that you record below. If your net worth is positive, then this number will be green, and if it is negative, it will be red. The assets and liabilities are each broken down into 4 categories. The assets include cash and bank accounts, investments and retirement, properties, and other. You should list anything that is worth approximately $500 or more. Under cash and bank accounts, I would list cash and then each bank account you have. This might be 1 or more checking accounts and any savings accounts. Next, write down your investment or retirement accounts. If you don't know what accounts you have, this is a good time to look them all up and figure out exactly what you do have. You only have to type out the accounts once, and then you just have to type in the balances in the future. If you own a house or any other properties, list them here. And finally, list any other assets you own, such as vehicles. The liabilities are broken down into credit, loans and financing, properties, and other. Credit includes credit cards and other forms of credit. List each individual credit card if you have multiple. Loans and financing includes things like personal loans or payment plans, such as for a medical loan or medical bill. If you have a mortgage or a loan on any property, list that under properties. If you have a mortgage, it's important that you list the amount owed on the house as well as the value of the house in the asset section. For example, if you have a house that is worth $200,000 and your mortgage is currently at $120,000, that means you could sell the house and get approximately $80,000 back. If you just list the mortgage and not the value of the house, you won't get an accurate picture of your net worth. Even though you still owe on the house, you are accruing equity in it as you pay down the mortgage. The same applies to assets like vehicles. If you have a car loan, list the value of the car in the assets section and list the amount owed in the liabilities section. Lastly, list any other liabilities you have. I list our student loans here, but you could also list that under loans and financing. And then that's how you're going to set up this sheet. Just list the assets and liabilities on the far left. And then you will choose a day to check the balances of each category, either once a month or once a quarter. I make this easy and do it on the first of every month. At first, looking up the balances of each account might seem tedious, but you will get faster at it each month. A couple of tips. I do not list the amount in our main checking account because money is constantly going in and out of it and I budget out every dollar in that account. I would just list the balances of cash and bank accounts that are maintained at about $500 or above. But if you would like to include everything, you can do that. Then, if you are able to look up the exact balance on something, do that. But some assets don't have a clear value. For like our liabilities and our assets that I'm able to, I will actually log into each account and record the exact balance. But for our house and our vehicles, I cannot just look up exactly what it's worth. To make it easy, I will just go on Zillow and record the Zestimate for our house. It's usually close to what I expect it to be. And then for vehicles, you could look up the value of your vehicle on Kelley Blue Book or just research what your vehicle is selling for in your area. Just think about like what would you get out of it if you sold it, and that's really what you should list as the value of the asset. So once you have your accounts/categories listed on here, you can check off the net worth tracker on the checklist. All right, let's check out the bill organizer. This sheet is an optional tool to help you organize your bills, subscriptions, checks, and other expenses. There are 3 charts: subscriptions and recurring expenses, bill tracker, and check tracker. The only thing you need to do to set up this sheet, if you choose to use it, is to list your recurring expenses and subscriptions under the first chart. Recurring expenses and subscriptions are similar. They are any expenses that you pay on a regular basis. So your utility bills, you're going to usually pay monthly. You may have insurance that you pay monthly or biannually. Subscriptions can include things like Netflix, Amazon Prime, or even a gym membership. List as many of your subscriptions or recurring expenses as you can think of, and you can come back and add more to the list later. When you fill out the chart, you can list the due date. If the bill is on auto pay, type Y for yes or N for no. Select how frequent you pay the bill. The payment method is completely optional, but sometimes I like to type in the last 4 digits of the bank account because we have 2 bank accounts that we sometimes use to pay for the bills. We have one main bank account that we use for our bills, but then there are some things that we put into a different bank account, and so I'll just type in the last 4 digits so I know which bank account I need to have the money in to pay for it. If you know which pay period you're going to pay it in, you could select the pay period and then type in the amount and any notes you want to add. When you go to budget for a pay period, you can use the filter button in this chart, select clear, and then select the pay period you're going to budget for, and it'll filter out only those pay period expenses. And then press select all, press OK when you want the chart to go back to normal. And I don't know about you, but I cancel subscriptions frequently, so I added this cool feature so you can visualize which expenses you have canceled. It will just cross it off for you so you can see, okay, those have been canceled. That's all you need to do to set up this sheet. The bill tracker is used for bills that you receive once, not on a regular basis. So if you got a dentist bill in the mail, you can type it into your bill tracker. When you go to budget for the next pay period, just check over this list to make sure you have budgeted for all of your bills. And then once you have paid off a bill, you can check it off. I don't write checks very often, and I found myself forgetting about them because I wasn't looking at my check register when budgeting, so I created a check tracker so you can check and see if you need to budget for any checks that are still outstanding. That's a lot of checks. Once you have seen that a check has been withdrawn out of your bank account, you can check it off as being cleared. That way, when you are budgeting, you can see, okay, this one has already been taken out of bank account, but we need to make sure there's enough money still in the bank account to pay for those checks. Utilizing these charts is completely optional, but if you do use them, make sure to check in with the bill organizing sheet before creating a budget so you don't miss any of your bills or checks. I will go over the other sheets in this personal finance tracker. But if you have done the steps so far, you should have successfully set up this template and you are now ready to use it. The last step in this checklist is to hide the sheets, start here, and set up. If there are any sheets you do not use often, you can hide them. Just click the arrow next to the name and select Hide Sheet. Then if you would like to open the sheet again, select the menu button down here at the bottom and select the name of the sheet to open it. It's also helpful to hide the sheet of each month you have finished. When you are done with January's budget, you can hide it to help clean up the tracker a little bit, and you are also free to move the order of the tabs to your liking. The monthly checklist is another optional tool. It has a list of steps I take each month in my own budgeting routine. You can change the steps or add more at the bottom. Check off the tasks you complete so you can keep track of what you have done and what you still need to do each month. The dashboard is a sheet that you will just look over, not touch. As you can see at the bottom, there is a lock symbol next to the name of the sheet. Like I said previously, some sheets or cells in this tracker are protected, which means if you try to edit them, you will get an error message. This is to help protect you from deleting any essential formulas in the spreadsheet. There are many formulas built into the spreadsheet, and if you delete any, you will mess up the calculations. On the dashboard, you will see a breakdown of your income and expenses for the year, as well as some charts and other information to help you review and analyze your budget. So the last sheet before the monthly budgeting sheets is the transaction log. This is where you list the transactions that have actually occurred and have hit your bank account. Making a budget is just the first step to managing your money wisely. The second step is tracking the actual numbers. Tracking the numbers will help you be so much more successful at budgeting. My previous budget template had a transaction log on each monthly sheet. Now there is only one master transaction log. I will explain this more in the next section, but I suggest having one main bank account where all of your income flows in and out of. Have your paychecks deposited into the main account and then transfer the money to other accounts from there if you want. You will make tracking your money easier and more accurate if you just have one bank account from which you need to record transactions. As you type the information into the transaction log, your monthly budget sheets will autofill with the data. I will show you an example on how to use this sheet, and then we will move on to the monthly sheets. I already added a bunch of example transactions. You only need to enter the budget month, pay period, category, and amount. If you don't add each of these four things, it won't show up accurately. So choose the budget month, the pay period, and just type in the number of the pay period, like type in 2, and it'll be easier to just select the pay period that way. You could type in the date, but I honestly never do this because it's just too tedious for me. You can select the type of category. That is optional though. It's just kind of a way to help you visualize the type of transactions that you have. Type in the budget category and type in the amount. And if you choose, you can type in some notes. I sometimes will type in the name of the store or restaurant that I made a purchase at, or I could type in some other details about what I bought. Try to update your transactions weekly or even twice a week, and it'll take you like 5 minutes to do. It seems like a lot, but really it'll help you just keep such a close eye on your finances. Now let's go over to the budget sheets. There is a lot to explain about these sheets, but I will try not to overwhelm or confuse you. The best way to learn how to use it is to just jump in and try it. You could also create an additional copy of the tracker just to play around and practice it. I aim to make the spreadsheet extremely user-friendly, so even if you've never touched a spreadsheet before, you should still be able to use this tracker with ease. And although this template is a pay period budget template, the pay periods are grouped by month. This is because you usually pay bills on a monthly basis, so it is beneficial to be able to review your budget on a monthly basis. You want to know what's your household's monthly income, how much do you spend on groceries each month, how much were you able to put towards debt this month. I love budgeting by pay period or paycheck because it provides so much flexibility, but knowing your monthly financial stats is important too. This is what the budget sheet will look like when it is blank. I already entered transactions for January, so this is what it looks like when it's a little bit more filled out. On the far left, you will find your list of budget categories that you already set up. So don't change these here. If you need to edit them at all or add any, just go to the setup sheet and change them there. Above the categories is a box that says current balance. And this is a white box, but it has a formula in it. Don't type in it. It'll automatically calculate the amount for you. Listen up because this needs to be explained well. If you're like me, you probably have multiple bank accounts, not just one. But I suggest having a main bank account where all income is deposited into. Then have it dispersed from there to other accounts if you wish. This allows you to accurately budget every single dollar. In addition, if you do this, you can compare your actual bank account balance to the current balance listed here. And matching the two numbers can be used as a measure of protection to make sure you have recorded every transaction accurately. In order for this current balance to be correct, you need to do 3 things. 1, you need to record each and every transaction in the main bank account on the transaction log. 2, you need to make sure to list any beginning balance at the start of each pay period in the actual cell. And list any leftover balance at the end of each pay period in the actual cell. And finally, you need to reconcile each pay period before moving on to the next pay period. Now, you can ignore this current balance box completely if you'd like and not compare it to your bank account balance and still be able to create zero-based budgets using this template. So I will explain this more further, but let's continue looking over this budget template. There are 5 pay periods each month that you can use, but if you aren't going to use them all, you can minimize the ones you don't need to. Just click this minus button at the top, and unfortunately, because of all the protections built into this page, you will get an error message if you try to minimize a pay period. But for this one occurrence, you can select OK, because all you're doing is just hiding the pay periods so you can just keep it a little cleaner, more organized. On the far right, you will see a monthly overview. There is the total income and total expenses for the month. Then the expenses are broken down into spending, saved/invested, and debt payments. The spending is just the total expenses minus anything that you put towards savings or debt. And then the debt payments is the amount of money you paid towards your debt this month, but not how much your total debt balance has decreased, because this doesn't take into account your debt's interest. To start budgeting, you can type in the date if you would like. Type in the payday date or the dates of the pay period. So for here, I did list the dates of the pay period. Underneath the pay period, you're going to see two columns. You will fill out the budgeted column, and the transaction log will autofill the actual column. If you expect to have a beginning balance, you can list that in the budgeted cell, and then you'll list any income that you expect to receive during the pay period. If you have multiple streams of income or you budget with a spouse, you can of course enter all streams of income. You can decide whether to budget them under the same period if you have similar pay schedules, or separate pay periods if your pay schedules are a little flip-flopped. Once you've added your income, you'll have an amount under left to budget, and that is the amount of money you need to budget out. You need to assign a job to each dollar until this amount reaches zero. That is how you make a zero-based budget. Early on in my marriage, my husband and I would only budget for the bills and essential expenses and leave extra money sitting in our bank account, hoping to save it, but we would usually spend it because we didn't have a plan for it. And so when we started using zero-based budgeting and we started budgeting this way, we suddenly felt like we had so much more money, even though we had the same amount to work with. We also felt like we had control over our money and the power to reach our financial goals. So you'll go through the expenses and budget out all the money until this cell equals zero. Don't type into the dark blue rows. This is the amount of the subcategory added up together. So this is the amount of all the utilities and bills for the pay period. If you go all the way to the right, you will see this is the amount of all the budgeted utilities / bills for the entire month for all the pay periods. And this is the actual amount for the entire month. At the bottom of the pay period, as you're still budgeting for pay period 1, if you want to leave an amount of money in your bank account, either as a buffer or to use in the next pay period, list that under the leftover balance in the budget column. So I already finished pay period 1. I also entered the transactions on the transaction log already. So the pay period is done. And you know that the pay period is done when all of the transactions have been entered and this amount is zero. Well, I still have $65 left sitting in my checking account. So before I move on to the next pay period, I have to list that as my leftover balance, my actual leftover balance. So now that this is brought to zero, and you can double check that this is zero, I have fully reconciled pay period 1, and I'm going to select reconciled to fade pay period 1. Next, I must list the same amount I listed as the leftover balance in pay period 2 as the actual beginning balance for pay period 2. From pay period 1. So that's the beginning balance for pay period 2. As you can see, the pay period budgets flow one after another. They don't overlap. But you can begin creating the budget for the next pay period before the current pay period ends. I often budget all the pay periods for a month or two ahead. You just want to keep the actual transactions separate and not overlap those. So as you can see, I still have some of pay period 2 left to budget. I already budgeted for what I need to, so I'm going to put this last chunk towards my main financial goal in this example, which is paying off debt. So I'm going to go down and put the extra money towards debt until that amount of money under left to budget equals zero. Again, I have to enter the transactions for this pay period on the transaction log, and then when the pay period is done, type my leftover balance at the bottom. I have entered all the transactions and I still have $65 left in my bank account. So I'll type that here at the bottom. The left to spend is zero, the current balance is zero, all my transactions have been entered. So pay period 2 is reconciled. Now I need to move on to February, and I will be listing that $65 as my leftover balance in January as my beginning balance in pay period 1 of February. At this point, you could choose to hide January's budget sheet if you would like. If you are new to budgeting, it may take a few months to get into a routine and a groove with it. It might feel like a lot of work in the beginning, but if you stick with it, it gets easier and easier. I also want to note to be careful with copy and pasting because you don't want to paste over a formula. However, you could copy a section such as all of your utilities in pay period 1 and then go to the utilities of pay period, a different pay period, right click and select paste special values only. It'll copy the numbers for you over there, and that helps you save time and speed up the process of creating a new budget. So copy and pasting is fine, just you need to make sure you don't copy over formulas. Now, your budget month may not align perfectly with the calendar month. For instance, my husband is paid semi-monthly on the 10th and the 25th of the month. His pay periods do not fit perfectly within the calendar month, and I base our pay period budget around his pay schedule because he is the main financial provider for our family. So I decided that the 25th is the first pay period of the month for us. This is because the first of the month is within that pay period. So we have our first pay period going from January 25th through February 9th. Our second pay period will go through February 10th because he gets paid on the 10th through February 24th, and then he'll get paid again on February 25th. So our budget month goes from January 25th through February 24th. It is not February 1st through the 28th like the calendar. Now, you and your spouse's schedules may be different from ours, but you will have to decide how to break it down for your own personal budget. Just make sure to stay consistent. You should only pay your mortgage or rent once a month, at least typically, your electric bill once a month, and so on. So if you don't get paid on the first of the month, like most people, a good rule is to choose the pay period that contains the first day of the month as pay period 1 for the month. Then you'll start the next month when you get to the pay period that contains next month's first day. My husband would get paid on February 25th. I'm not going to include that in the February budget because that pay period goes from February 25th through March 9th, and that includes March 1st. March 1st is within those dates, so that pay period, February 25th through March 9th, is what I would consider pay period 1 for March. But don't stress too much about it, just test it out. Okay, so my template used to also have a row to list transfers and withdrawals. Now, if you transfer money to your main bank account, say from a savings account, you will record that by listing the account it came from as the category and the amount as a negative amount on the transaction log. So you can list every single bank account you have as some type of category on your setup sheet, or make a general transfers category under miscellaneous expenses. So just going back to the setup sheet real quick, I'm just going to write transfers because you do not want the transferred income to be counted as new income because it's technically money you already had and you should have already counted it as income once when it was first deposited into your bank account. To show you an example on the transaction log, let's say I have an emergency fund. If I budget for us to save $200 one pay period, this is what I would type out. And even though you're saving money, you'll still list it as an expense. It's an allocation of your income. So you're assigning all of your income to different things, and one of those things might be your savings account, and that is why you would call it an expense. So if I were to save $200, this is how I would record it. And then if we had an emergency or a small thing come up, and we needed to transfer money back to our main account, I would type transfer, but like I said, this column is like totally optional. It's just to kind of give you visualization of what's going on. The important thing is to type a negative $100. That means you transferred it back to your main account. So instead of saving $200, you're adding $100 back into the account, and it came from the emergency fund. Another example of this, if you took money out and you took personal money out to spend, you took out $50, but you only used $25, and you want to put the money back into your bank account, that's how you would record that you put $25 back into your bank account. If you do make a cash withdrawal, don't put a negative sign. You would just list it like this. You list it as personal money or maybe a shopping category and type the amount you took out without a negative sign. So just to be extra clear, never put a negative sign next to the amount on the transaction log unless it is a transfer. This means money is transferred back into your main bank account from another one of your accounts or from cash that you had withdrawn. It's important to only track income when it is brand new income, like from a paycheck. Alright, so I have gone over this template in so much detail already, but I have just a few more tips. You are able to customize the fonts and colors of the spreadsheet. If you click this little rectangle in the top left-hand corner, you can select the whole page and change the fonts or the font size or the colors of the entire page. But if you want to change these settings throughout the whole personal tracker to keep it all cohesive, go up here and select format and then select theme. This allows you to change the fonts and colors for every single sheet and keep it all looking cohesive. So you can select customize to change the settings to the way you like, or you can choose one of the themes in this list. Like I have said in this video a few times already, only type in white blank cells to avoid messing up a formula. However, you can select a cell and change the font or color even if it has a formula. Just don't type in it. So I think I covered everything. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out through email for support, and I will do my best to respond. Give yourself a goal to budget every dollar and track every dollar for the next 30 days. Remember, you need to do both to have the most success. You will be amazed at how much financial clarity you gain. So I hope this video was helpful, and I pray that this template is a valuable tool for you and your family.